Okay. Hi, everyone. Guys, we are with this cool new founder that I met, Christa Cotton. She's the founder of El Guapo Bitters out of New Orleans, Louisiana. So cool. She came to Class Rebels Fundraising 101 class in December of last year, and we just hit it off. I mean, she's got this thriving business in zero proof bitters. It's a really cool story, and I wanted you guys all that follow Class Rebel, that are starting your own businesses, to meet Christa, because her story and her spirit are so contagious and so interesting. So welcome, Christa, to the show. I'm so excited that we're doing this together.
Hi,
Yeah, and I wanted to kick off with, like, tell us El Guapo's origin story. Like, what is El Guapo? Why did you start this? What's the 10-year vision? Like, where is this all going to go? Because I did a little research, and you've already been noticed by, like, the press and some of the big spirits. So, like, tell us everything. Tell us everything.
Okay, so it all started when I was a little girl. I come from a really entrepreneurial family. So my dad, when I was 5 years old, bought one shopping center and said, "We're gonna build a small real estate portfolio, and this is what we're gonna do as a family." So that started when I was 5, and by the time I was 18, he owned 75 centers all across the Southeast, and it was like 7.5 million square feet of real estate. So I got the entrepreneurial bug early. I knew when I went to college, this is what I wanted to do. I went to Auburn and worked for my dad. His headquarters was about 45 minutes away in Georgia. Worked for him, and then Hurricane Katrina hit. So a lot of the real estate properties were destroyed by the storm. So I spent my first half of college sort of helping rehab all of these shopping centers. And then my dad decided that we needed to diversify because that was right in the middle of the financial crunch. So we'd had two bad situations back to back, and he saw an article in the Wall Street Journal about a craft distiller in Atchison, Kansas. This was in 2007. There weren't craft breweries or distilleries yet, and he said, "I'm going to do this." And everybody said, "Oh my God, your dad's having a midlife crisis. He's not really going to do that." Well, he did it. So last half of college, dream job for a 21-year-old, I literally helped my father open Georgia's first craft distillery. So worked there, loved it. Ultimately graduated from Auburn in 2010 and decided that I wanted to move to New Orleans. I've always wanted to live here. It has a special place in my heart because of the real estate and just time that I've spent here over my life. And really felt like my parents were kind of doing it wrong. I didn't think that they understood market strategy, advertising. So I wanted to kind of delve into that. I got a job here for a branding agency. Worked specifically on hospitality and tourism clients. Ended up being a producer on Top Chef for a year, which I loved, but ultimately missed making things. And the original, there was a bartender here in New Orleans that had dabbled in making bitters and syrups, didn't have a scientific or manufacturing background, definitely didn't have a business background. Bottles were exploding on store shelves. There were just like a lot of issues. And he knew who I was and approached me about buying it. And at first I said, no way, I've got a lot of stuff going on. I was working on another idea at the time, and he gave me his financials. So I shared them with my parents, and my dad said, "If you don't do this, I'm going to." And that's sort of the push that I needed to really do my own thing. So I bought the trademark and started my own LLC and rolled those up into my company, and really spent the first 2 years reformulating recipes, making sure that the science was right, because I didn't want to start growing it if we didn't have a solid foundation. So I spent all of the first 2 years doing that, and then really the last year and a half, it's really taken off. So I was, obviously really nervous when COVID hit. A lot of our most important partners are these independent restaurants and chefs. When they started closing down, we also, we lost a big book of our wholesale business, and then our deal with Costco was put on hold indefinitely because of the pandemic. They literally pulled our spaces for toilet paper, which sounds insane, but it's true. So we lost that. And then all of a sudden we noticed that our online sales were skyrocketing, and we were actually able to triple our company in the pandemic. And here
Oh
we
my
are.
God. That's wild. Okay, so was something interesting that you said that I wanted to pick up on is, okay, so take us back. So you bought the trademark,
Yes.
but with that trademark, okay, so he'd already called it El Guapo Bitters and he'd registered the intellectual property on El Guapo. Is that right? That brand name.
Correct. So he says that his military nickname in college and like through the military was El Guapo. If you saw him, you would probably beg to differ. So we
Yeah.
publicly say it's our dog. We are obsessed with. We have a Bernese Mountain Dog named Archie, so he's our El Guapo. But yes, yeah, so we bought the trademark that he'd registered, and then we actually filed additional marks on that and have kept it. But all we really purchased from him were the inventory, a limited amount of equipment, you know, the trademark. The original recipes weren't worth very much because there were a lot of issues with them, but you know, we have those, and then we just really built it from basically nothing.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. So, okay. So here's like, there's so much here, right? It's like, well, okay. So you bought the trademark. So basically you bought the name El Guapo, right? And then there was some of the recipes, some equipment, right? But why buy it if it was barely anything? Like, why did you buy it versus just starting right from scratch? Because there wasn't much to buy.
There wasn't. So it was honestly, I saw the potential, and there were certain things about it when I was looking at the bones of like where he was trying to go with the recipes and sort of some of the distribution ends that he already had, but had no idea how to actually like execute. There were like, he didn't understand the strategy part, but there was enough to it. And honestly, he he didn't get very much for what I purchased, and you know, because you have to execute it for it to be a really valuable idea. So there was
Yeah.
enough there that it was like, you know, worth it to me to start kind of on the second flight of stairs and not all the way at the bottom. But at this point, we're
Yeah.
kind of maybe on like the 10th flight of stairs, and it's that first, you know, few flights that are the hardest to get through, and it was a little bit of a leg up, that enough that it made it worth it for me to do it instead of starting over.
Got it. Okay, cool. And then what else, something else you said that I think is so interesting for people to hear is that you bought this and then you spent 2 years building foundations, right? That's so interesting to me because you not only spent a bunch of time building foundations, but you would have probably spent a bunch of money, right?
Right.
And in that time, that's a really scary time for founders and also I would think investors, because this is generally a time where you're like trying to figure out market product fit and just trying to build something that the market might like, right? Like, so in those 2 years, what were you doing? You said you were like perfecting recipes. Was there any time where you felt like you were spending a bunch of money setting foundations and it wasn't going to pay off?
So I really came at this from, I want to, not that I'm never going to make a mistake again, but I want to, the big whoppers, the ones that are going to like mess you up with big retailers or, you know, logistical mistakes, things that are going to happen in a manufacturing business. I wanted to learn those while I was still small, local, regional. I didn't want to like get into a Costco and then it's like, oops, we don't understand how depots and distribution works. So I really spent a lot of time honing in the recipes, the science, the logistics, figuring out what products were our top sellers and what are motivational drivers behind our marketing messaging, like things that I could test on a smaller basis before we started getting more national exposure and clients. And it is really
Yeah.
scary. My domestic life partner is a CPA, and he quit his job without telling me because he thought what I was building was really cool and he wanted to be here with me. And I was like, I so appreciated that. It's amazing. And he's still here with me now, but like I could have killed him because we lost all of our steady streams of income overnight when he quit his job. So that 2 years of not really making a ton of money, not having a steady stream of income. We also had a baby during that time period. She's now
Wow.
2. So it was a lot. And, you know, I don't know. I think I doubted myself a lot. And then the pandemic hit and it really took off. And so many of the struggles and like the ideas that we had tested have now been validated. And I feel a lot more confident now as I'm going out to raise really for the first time. And I feel really lucky. I trusted my gut and did what I thought was the right thing. I still own 100% of it. And, you know, now we're moving on to the next stage, which is really trying to scale all aspects of what we're doing.
So on the topic of scale, what is the 10-year vision? How does this, what is
I,
it? Is it direct to consumer business? Is it, selling wholesale? Do you eventually get purchased by somebody? Who would that be? Do you develop, something more than zero proof bitters? Do you go into new categories? Like in 10 years, where do you think this is going? And how do you think you get out of this, right? Or your investors that you're going to bring in, how do they exit this?
Yep. So it's kind of everything you mentioned. So the first 2 years in that weird period of figuring out the science and the manufacturing, it's important to note that we don't use co-packers. All of our manufacturing, our entire process is pretty much owned from start to finish. We don't have a glass factory, so we're obviously buying the glass, and we don't grow spices, so we're buying the ingredients. But once the ingredients get to our door, until they reach your door, we're doing it. We have distribution partners that we work with, but we don't have a 3PL. We do all of our own shipping and logistics. And pretty much every part that we can own, we do. And I feel like that gives us a much better handle and a much higher quality on the finished product.
Yeah.
So I think the pandemic has taught us that direct to consumer is not going away for us. I think our business will always be split between this direct to consumer, people who find us on our website or on Amazon and love what we're doing. We'll always have that as a silo of the business. And then we'll also always have distribution. The 10-year plan is to have complete distribution in all 50 states where we're shipping by the pallet to our partners. We do take advantage of liquor distribution. It tends to work well for us because our biggest clients are liquor stores and independent restaurants that want to have a really high quality bar program and want more options than just, the traditional Angostura or Peychaud's bitters. In that 2-year period, I went ahead and developed mixers and syrups. So we have 3 different sort of product lines that we have ready to go as we scale. And the 10-year vision is really I want to build my own manufacturing plant. I want to be the Chobani yogurt of the cocktail industry. And I want to be one of the largest female manufacturers in the country. And I think that, we've learned a lot. I think we're primed to do that. I think it'll be really difficult, but also a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yes. Oh my
And
God, I'm so inspired.
well, thanks. And then, and to answer your last question, I think we're most valuable to someone like a Diageo or, any big liquor conglomerate that has high-end brands and wants mixers and bitters that complement their product to come in and really acquire us. It's not that different than what Bethany Frankel did with Skinny Girl, but she did use co-packers and her products are alcoholic. We're zero proof and we do all the manufacturing ourselves, but it's sort of a similar play. And, we're building it to sell because we have some other interesting ideas that we want to pursue. So I'm 33 now, and by the time I'm 40, I would like to have this baby sold, and then I'll be off to the next thing, I hope.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, well, that's so cool. And I completely see the vision and I'm so on board. One thing I learned in class from you was that you've done a number of accelerators. And I wanted to know, for a lot of people, that are raising money or just starting off, they think about this. And I wanted to ask you, like, what have you learned in the accelerators? Do you recommend them? Have you given up equity? Where have they made the biggest difference? I personally have never gone through an accelerator. So I would love to hear which ones you've gone through and what you think.
Sure. So like I said, I had a baby in the middle of this 2 years of trying to fix the science and the manufacturing behind the actual brand. You kind of get like mired and lost, and like there can be a lot of disappointments and things that don't go your way. And like that was a really tough 2-year period. And in the middle of that, I had my daughter, and I was kind of not flailing, but like kind of like losing my my game face and my courage of like, we can do this. And I really needed to organize my thoughts and have some accountability for what the plan was and how we were going to get out of this 2-year low revenue period into like really scaling and getting where like, we can have a family and like afford to live. So I went into the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program. They'd been after me for a while. I don't know how they got my email address, but they did. I applied. I interviewed. I remember walking out of that interview and telling Brian, don't ever ask me about that again. It was terrible. They asked me 2 questions and I failed and we didn't get it, and don't ask me. And 2 weeks later, they called back and they were like, "We would like to offer you a spot." And I was like, "Seriously?" So that was exciting.
Yeah.
And we did that program. It was 3 months over the summer, and it really helped me organize my thoughts and ideas. I would say the most valuable part of that is, for me, Goldman Sachs was my cohort. I met some other really great entrepreneurs in my community and that we still stay in touch with. So that was helpful, but we didn't give up any equity. And it was really kind of more of like a starter accelerator for like how you get going. So that helped me get organized. From there, I had a few girlfriends tell me that I should apply to the Tory Burch Foundation, which did a lot of research and applied to that. And I got in, but the program was supposed to start in May. And obviously, with COVID, everything was halted. I didn't go to New York. It didn't turn out like we all thought it would, but it's actually been incredible because it's gone completely virtual. So we do meetups and different events all the time. And actually, the network of women that I've met have been some of the most helpful people I've met during COVID, and they've been a big part of my success story. I've met entrepreneurs from all around the country. They're all really driven, they have great ideas. And I, again, didn't give up any equity, but it was a great program to be a part of. So if you're a woman, I highly recommend looking into Tory Burch. It's been one of the best things that I did during COVID for sure, and continue to do. I still have 6 more months of that. And then recently, as we're scaling, our biggest issue is manufacturing. I do not purport myself to be an expert at figuring out how to go from $1 million in a product to $20 million in a product manufactured in a year. So I got the opportunity to pitch in front of a GAN accelerator here in New Orleans. It's called Idea Village. Again, very nervous. I didn't think I would get it, but I did. So starting, I guess, in 2 weeks, 10 days, something like that, I'm starting another accelerator program for 16 weeks, but this one is a lot more advanced, and it's specifically geared towards getting my manufacturing in order. And it's something that I feel like I need to do in order to be successful. So
Yeah.
I won't give up any equity in that one either, but I did give them the right to buy in for the same terms as my first investor. And there's a cap on that. And it was a cap that we felt comfortable with. And we know we're raising and we know we need the help. And I felt comfortable enough through the process to sign on for that. So that's what we're doing now.
Okay, well, that's so exciting. So it's interesting to hear someone who's done like multiple accelerators and really benefited, from each one and how what it has to offer. And then not giving up equity, right? So it's not a lot of risk other than your time, right? Because if you're giving up equity, it's sort of like what is coming in return, and it's not always clear. The last thing I want to ask you today, and this question has a special place in my heart. What's the most serendipitous thing that's happened since you started El Guapo? Because the reason why I ask is sometimes as founders, we're going after a certain thing and we feel like it's not working, we're pushing water uphill, and then some things just land in our laps, right? And it would turns out to be this thing that changes the course of what you're doing. So I always like to ask every founder, like, what do you think is the most serendipitous thing that's happened so far?
I think like a lot of women have imposter syndrome, and you struggle with like your confidence and like selling what you're going towards. And a lot of times when I'm hitting a wall and feeling like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? Why did I start this in the very beginning? Something always happens. Somebody reaches out, or like the Tory Burch thing, some of the women that I've met and that have been a real lifeline. And they're people that I text with, have become like almost virtual pen pals with. And it's all through a network that I've built. And I feel like those are the relationships that have kept me going when things have been really, really tough. Like you talk about all the highs and that's what you post on Instagram and whatever, but like entrepreneurship is not for the faint at heart. This is really, really difficult. And honestly, the women that I've met on this journey, and I have to give a lot of the credit to Tory Burch, that program specifically, some of the women that I've met over the past year have really kept me going. Like in March, I was in the fetal position in my closet thinking we were about to file for bankruptcy. And then I had my highest month of sales, even still to this day, my highest month of sales the very next month. So you just never know. And it's the people that you meet that, you just connect with, and rising tides raise all ships. So looking for the people that are positive and everyone trying to push their vision forward is what has meant the most to me through COVID.
Well, thank you so much for sharing this. I cannot wait to see your product everywhere. I was on your site. I'm like, I looked at the gift boxes. I'm like, these are the coolest, this most gorgeous packaging. I can't wait to buy it. And thank you like for serendipitously coming to my class and sharing your story with us. And I know that you and I are going to keep in touch, work on some things together. And thank you for being here on the show today, Christa. It's so nice to hear your story, and I am sure it'll inspire a lot of people. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.